All right, students, let's continue where we left off yesterday on section 6.2, where we're looking at the comparison between fractions, decimals, and percents. A fraction is a number that can describe parts of a whole. If the fraction 7/10 describes the shaded portion of a circle, then the whole circle has 10 equal parts and 7 of them are shaded. That's what that would mean. A decimal can also be used to describe parts of a whole. The fraction 7/10 can be written as the decimal 0.7, and the fraction 85/100 can be written as the decimal 0.85. Because this is a tenths position, this is a hundredths position, so that would be 85/100. Okay, all things that we're supposed to already know. All right, let's go to number 1. The diagram shows how Roscoe, Ariana, and Fujita shared a pizza. Roscoe ate 25/100 of the pizza. Ariana ate, and you can't read that, I don't believe. This is supposed to be 1/8 right here, and this is 25/100, and this is 50% right here. So fill in your pie chart if yours is unreadable. When things are shaded in the book, then they come out wrong when you make copies. So sorry about that. So fill in the boxes to write 25/100 as a fraction. So we're going to take this 25/100 and we're going to change it to a fraction. So that means 25 over 100. 25/100 is 25 over 100. And then we want to turn this into a 1, so 25 divided by 25 is 1. And what we divide the numerator by, we have to divide the denominator by the same thing. And so that ends up being a 4. So that's 1/4. Okay, now let's take this 25/100 and let's turn it into a percent. Well, once again, that's 25 over 100, which is 25%. Whenever the bottom number is 100, your top number is your percent, your percentage. Okay, and then I hope you can see this next part. We're going to take the 1/8 and we're going to write it as a decimal. So decimal 1/8 is, here's the 1/8. We're going to multiply that by something to turn it into, to turn the denominator into 100. Well, the way you figure out what that is, you work backwards. You take 100 and you divide it by 8. So your multiplier would be 12.5. So that's where they got that 12.5 right there. So 1 times 12.5, what you do to the denominator, you have to do to the numerator, is 12.5, which means 12.5%. 12 and 5/10%. 12.5%. Okay? Now they want us to take this decimal 1.125 and they want us to turn it into a percent. So that was 1/10, hundreds, thousand. So that's 125 over 1,000. It's 1,000 because that 5 is in the thousandths position. Tenths, hundreds, thousandths. Now then, we want it to be 100 like this. So we're going to take this 1,000 and we're going to divide it by 10 to turn it into 100. And then 125 divided by 10 is again 12.5, which is 12.5%. All right, I'm going to go to number 3. Fill in the boxes. We're going to take 50% and we're going to change it into a fraction. So 50% means 50 over 100. Now we want to turn that into a 1. So that's 50 divided by 50 is 1. 100 divided by 50 is 2. 50% means a half. And now we're going to take the 50% and turn it into a decimal. 50 over 100 is equal to 50 hundredths, so that's 0.50 in the hundredths position. This 0 is in the hundredths position, which is the same thing as 0.5, really, because a half is the same thing as 50 hundredths. All right, let's go to number 4. we're going to write 78 hundredths as a fraction and as a percent. Well, the percent's the easiest. Well, I don't know. Fraction's pretty easy. 78 hundredths is 78 hundredths. Boom, done. Except you need to reduce it. Now, the percent's really easy because when the bottom number is 100, it's just 78%. There's one answer. Finished. This answer will be finished when we reduce it. So we're going to divide this by 2. We're going to divide this by 2. So that gives you 39 over 50, and I believe that is your reduced form. So there's your other answer as a fraction. There's percent and there's fraction. Turn your paper over and let's do the vocabulary. Percent. What is a percent? Well, we know, we can make an example of one. Here's 25% and here's 25%. So let's describe this one. Okay, let's give the definition on this one. It's a rate, in parentheses, fraction, because a rate is a fraction, a rate in which the numerator is compared to 100 in the denominator. I'm going to abbreviate denominator. So, if we're comparing some number to 100. If it's a percent, it's got 100 in the denominator. Number 2 is fraction. What's a plain old fraction? How do you describe a fraction? It's a part compared to a whole. Like 1/3. This is the part. This is the whole. 1 out of 3 kids was sick. 3 is the whole. 1 is the part that's sick. All right, number 3, decimal. Another way to describe a part compared to a whole. Another way to describe a part compared to a whole. Remember yesterday when we talked about fractions, decimals, percent? We had the 3 columns. If I give you a fraction, you ought to be able to give me the decimal version and the percent version. If I give you the percent version, you ought to be able to give me the fraction and the percent. Just, let's do an example here. I'm going to draw a box. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 divisions. Here's a box. And I'm going to represent 3/10. So that means I'm going to shade 3 of those 10 boxes. And I'm going to write that as 0.3, 3/10. Okay, what's a whole? The whole is the total. In this case, 3/10. 10 is the total. It's all you have that you're talking about. The bottom number, the denominator. Let's put that in parentheses. The denominator. Total is always in the denominator. Okay, let's do equivalent. Means equal to. Means equal to. 0.2 equals 0.2. Equivalent. They're equivalent. Denominator. The bottom number in a fraction that is the whole. 2/7. That's the denominator. That's the whole. Okay, that's a little review of how they're all connected. Now, let's look at the additional practice. The additional practice on these first 9 problems, you're going to take the decimal, you're going to write it as a fraction, you're going to reduce it to get your final fraction answer, and you're going to write it as a percent. Okay, I need all of you to have this paper in front of you, because down here in the bottom part of this, you can't tell by the shading what's what. So you need to take your pencil and you need to label all these sections, because all these questions 10 through 15 have to do with these pie charts. This one has to do with boys' favorite music, and this is girls' favorite music. So you need to write these in. This is hip hop, and I'll go clockwise. This is pop. This is country, rock, R&B. Moving over to the girls, starting top left is hip hop, then country, pop. This little sliver here is rock, and this is R&B. And you have to label those because you can't tell by the key down here which one's which. Okay, so your job for the remainder of class time today is to work through changing all of these first 9 problems. There's 2 answers, 2 equivalent forms. If it gives you the fraction, then you're going to find the decimal and the percent. If it gives you the percent, then you're going to find the fraction and the decimal. So whatever it gives you, you find the other 2. Okay? So you have your vocabulary page, your reteaching page, your work from yesterday, and you're going to spend some more time working on these 3 different forms of the same thing. Fraction, decimal, percent. Okay, and I will see you next time. Work hard.